Hello Uganda, once again it's Paul Tarema, NRM Online TV, the truth as always. Today we are very privileged to host Honorable David Bahati, State Minister for Finance. Welcome to the show, Honorable Minister.
Thank you.
Now to start with, people have seen the budget. It has been through the media about what is going to be read on Thursday, and people are wondering why there has not been an increment in the financing of the health sector. The infrastructure is there, the hospitals are there, the beds are there, but it seems there are no drugs in the hospitals. So why wasn't there an increase in this budget for the health sector?
The financing of the health sector has been focused on the priorities within the health sector. The health sector has focused on developing the necessary infrastructure to assist the health sector. They have focused on prevention of diseases. They have focused on supplies of drugs, and they have focused on ensuring that we continue to support the fight against HIV/AIDS and now non-communicable diseases. And in those specific areas, we have seen increased funding for the health sector. We now have next financial year put resources to build the health center 3s and upgrade some health center 2s into health center 3s. As you all know, we are renovating Mulago, and they were remaining with close to 35 billion, and that resource has been provided. We have also provided more money for the medical supplies and the national medical stores, and we are also doing a number of other infrastructures across the country, including equipment. So it is not true that we are not funding the health sector. We are funding the health sector, but the only challenge that we have is that the requirement to reach us a level where actually you would say now we have arrived in terms of funding for the health sector is what remains an issue. So given the requirements of the health sector and the resource envelope, I think Uganda, compared to other countries, we are doing well. We are also putting money to correct the distortions in terms of remunerations in the consulting, the consultants in the health sector, and we have added an extra 13 billion to support our dear medical doctors so that they can offer the necessary expertise needed in our country. And also we will be, as you know, putting up a specialized hospital at Rubowa. That the process is ongoing. So there are quite a number of innovations and quite efforts that the country, the NRM government, is putting in place to support the health sector. And if this combined with the incoming of the National Health Insurance Scheme, then we will see the cost of our health sector coming down and the services are increasing.
Thank you very much. That elaborates more about the funding of the health sector, ladies and gentlemen. Now to move on. We've heard of the national debt. When you hear behind closed doors rumors about how it is going to surpass the GDP, even the national budget, what are the steps you've taken to cover this? Should the public be worried about the national debt, or you as the finance person? Let you explain about this.
I think it's important to really make this bold statement that Uganda is not debt stressed now, and we are not going to be debt stressed, not even in the next 20 years, because we have been very cautious on how we handle the issue of public debt. We know where we are coming from. A few decades ago, we were very highly indebted. We had to be rescued by our development partners for giving us the amount of money we had borrowed. We are not going back to that situation. And to do that, we decided to have a debt, we decided to have a policy framework under which we operate and manage debt. So a debt sustainability framework is in place. We also have a threshold for the East African community where we said we can never, we should not go beyond 50% debt to GDP ratio. And that we are respecting, because as we speak, we are now at 41.5%. And within the next probably 7 years or 8 years, we can't even reach 50%. If you compare with our neighbors, Kenya, for example, is at 57.2%. Burundi is at 58.4%. Of course, Tanzania a little bit. Rwanda is at 40.7%. Tanzania at 36%. And the most important thing here is that when you borrow this money, is it offering services to the people of Uganda? If you look at the structure of our debt, 80% of our debt is actually financing infrastructure. And now we can proudly say that you can move from here, from Kampala to Chisoro on a tarmac, from Kampala to Koboko on a tarmac. We have brought in infrastructure for the aircraft which will start flying next month. We are also working on a number of initiatives. The dams, Isimba Dam, all these have been financed through borrowing, and the services are now reaching the people of Uganda. We have had a few challenges, though, of implementation, which we are handling. We had issues to do with compensation, issues to do with decision making in the bureaucracy, the bureaucracy we keep talking about. All these issues are being ironed out, and we think if they're ironed out in time, then it will be easy for us to get the dividends that we expect from this public debt. So Uganda is not debt stressed. It's not also not going to be debt stressed in the next 20 years, because in a few years from now, 7 to 10 years, we'll be producing our own oil. The resources which we have been producing, or rather using to finance this infrastructure through borrowing, will now be repressed by our own resources, and then the country will continue to move forward. So our investments are working, and our production is increasing. That's why you see that our growth rate is increasing now at 6.2%, which is the highest actually on the continent.
Ooh, that's a sigh of relief if you hear that Uganda cannot be stressed or cannot reach that margin where we have to be worried about the national debt. Now, Honorable Minister, would also like to know about, the plans you have for the youth, financing the youth, they depend more on agriculture because there is no employment. The president has been talking about financing agriculture from subsistence to commercial, especially to get the youth into agriculture. What plans do you have for them?
We put in place the youth livelihood program, and we also, which has a revolving fund that is moving. We have also put in place circles that young people can borrow money from. We are now focusing on what the president has been talking about, Emyoga, and at cabinet this Monday we discussed a paper which we are yet to conclude on how we can group our people, especially the young people, in enterprises. Those who want to do a number of enterprises are grouped together and are financed across the country. Because remember, the 130 billion we put under State House is really supposed to do a number of those initiatives focusing on young people. There are quite a number of opportunities in place for the young people, from the agricultural sector to the telecom sector. And we think that if the young people, young Ugandans continue working hard as they have been working hard, and the government continues opportunities and environment where young people can maximize on their talents, then the country will actually see this demographic dividend benefit the country. So we want this percentage of the bulge of young people, which is now 78% of our population, being looked at as a dividend, because they are young people who can work, who can take risks, who can innovate, instead of looking at them as a burden. So to us, this bulge of young people is a resource, not only to the NRM, but also a resource to the whole country. So what we need to do and what we are doing is give them the necessary skills, give them the resources, the working capital at a very low cost, and also open up opportunities where our young people can apply their talents and then develop themselves and make a contribution to the development of the country.
Wonderful. And the increased budget, should the taxpayer be worried? Will his pockets dry out because we are looking at this increased budget, or it is under control?
No, the tax says we have a budget which will be read tomorrow by the minister of 40 trillion. The 40 trillion we expect to correct domestically close to 20 trillion. And the balance will be financed through domestic borrowing and also external borrowing. Because, as you know, we have a big list of our priorities. The people of Uganda have appetite for good services, and the NRM government must continue to offer these services to the people of Uganda. And to finance this, you need to correct revenue through taxes. If you cannot finance the entire budget, then you can borrow domestically or externally. So this financial year, we have not put new tax measures. We have only concentrated on issues to do with compliance, improving tax administration efficiencies, and we expect that our revenue will grow from the current 16 trillion to close to 20 trillion financial budget. So there's no cause for alarm, no cause that new taxes will come. We have also put a domestic revenue mobilization strategy which focuses on new reforms like the digital stamps, reforms like use of technology, scanners at the borders, reforms like rentals, new efforts in the rental world to be able to collect more money from the rentals. We're also focusing on issues to do with the moving the informal people in the informal sector to the formal sector, because when we do that, then we get more organized private sector, which actually will push the economy forward, and then also we correct new taxes. We're also focusing on investments, because the more we get investments in the country, the more jobs will be created, the more people will earn income, and the more money that we'll get from those incomes.
Minister, when we talked about financing agriculture, especially when you talked about the youth, you talked about an issue of ICT. But when we talk about ICT, it's like it's in the urban centers. Have you had any financing to send it even to the local people down in the villages?
Yeah, we have been focusing on reducing the cost of internet, and we have put the national backbone up to phase 4, and we will be looking for resources to do the last mile infrastructure, the national backbone. You saw recently when His Excellency the President launched actually one in Koboko in the West Nile. So we are also in a few years we will be moving the last mile infrastructure, where we think that this internet will come down, because ICT is an important sector. It's an enabler to other sectors, and we think if the cost of internet comes down, then you are in a way also reducing the cost of doing business, and promoting opportunities for young people across the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable David Bahati, State Minister for Finance. You've heard it from the horse's mouth. Thank you very much. Paul Tarema, for God and my country.